Be good. Is that yes? You'll be good when you are a YouTube content creator with multitudes of pets. This is what happens. Hi, readers. It's Lori. Welcome back to my channel, Books, Ink, and Paper, or welcome if this is your first time. I'm so excited that you're here because today is the official launch of a new series that I'm going to do called And Then They Were Murdered. This comes on the heels of a video that I posted, which was called Let's Talk About the Dames of Mystery Madness, I think, and it was for March Mystery Madness Readathon. It is going to rain here, and I am sorry about that. This is the only time I have to record, so we're just going to have to deal with it. Nevertheless, I got so excited about that video because so many of you liked it, watched it, shared comments about it. It was just amazing. And I did say that I thought I wanted to start a series about these kinds of murder mystery writers because it was what I was really raised on and challenged to read in terms of the adult world of reading when I was young. Those were the books that my sisters pressed into my hands, small paperbacks, thin Agatha Christie's, Dorothy L. Sayers, which we did not talk about the other day, but that was one that I remember reading very, very fondly. There's lots of them. And so I'm just going to talk about them over time, and then maybe we'll do some buddy reads or some vlogs about the ones that I'm reading. But I just wanted to share with you today kind of the setup for this series, which essentially is what are these little murder mysteries and what do they sort of get categorized as? Now, this one that we're going to talk about today might be somewhat controversial to a few of you. So I want you to sort of see this question as your assignment for the end of the video, right? There are a lot of people who consider cozy mysteries to be a very specific genre that has very specific categories around it. However, there are also some that include as cozy mysteries authors like Agatha Christie, Dorothy L. Sayers, even Margaret Truman. I typically put them in a bit of a different category just because of a couple of things that we're going to talk about today. But I do think that you should consider cozy mysteries whatever way you consider cozy mysteries, right? Like the criteria is really up to you, and what you love is really up to you. So read what you love. That's the whole message, right? But today we're going to talk about some of the things that really do usually appear in a cozy mystery series. And then I'm going to share a few of them with you that I really kind of enjoy. So it's usually, but not always, there is a heroine, but sometimes I'm going to show you in a minute, this doesn't have anything to do with a woman character, right? So it can be almost anyone, but there is a central focal point around a particular person who is going to get swept up into this murder that occurs. And oftentimes this murder occurs nearby, near them, in some way. It really impacts them. And we'll talk about those as well. But for example, one of them is the murder happens in her coffee shop. Lots of murders happen around her. And so this is somewhat indicative of if you ever watched the Jessica Fletcher series of shows, Cabot Cove, a little woman who lives in this small little town, which is why some people feel like Agatha Christie's novels with Miss Marple would be considered cozies. I would say for myself, they are cozier, but I don't know that I consider them to be cozy. Nevertheless, usually cozy mysteries are fun. They engage your mind, but they're not necessarily highly planned out and difficult to solve. In fact, most of us know who the primary suspects are from the moment we start reading the book. Sometimes the people we dislike the most in the novels are the ones that end up dead. So that's also something to consider when you start reading a cozy mystery. You're thinking about the characters. There's a lot of character development, but usually not an overwhelming amount of them. And especially if they become a series, which most of them do, you end up knowing these people like you know your cousins and your siblings and your best friends, right? But they're usually set in a small little super sweet town where everybody kind of knows everybody, which makes it hard to figure out who might have murdered someone because you know these people. So you have a heroine or a character who really stands out to help solve the crime. You have a fun read that isn't too complex with lots of characters, but they're fun and easy to get to know. And somebody is really going to have to solve this murder or partner with somebody else to solve this murder. They're usually set in a small village setting, and they usually also have the cozy sleuth that really is focused on this, does not have any sort of degrees in crime solving or medical examination or anything related to that. But oftentimes there is someone in their life or in their neighborhood or that comes in as assigned to the case that becomes kind of a partner in this mystery. And maybe that's where sometimes a romance might blossom, although cozy mysteries do not always have romances. There are occasionally some characters who will begin to become this sort of amateur detective and then will end up in love with the police officer or the detective or whomever it is that comes in to help with the case. There really are a lot of similarities in all of these, and we all kind of expect that when we pick them up. Which is to say, I don't expect that when I pick up, for example, Margaret Truman or Elizabeth Peters or other novels like that. But these cozies are typically going to be set that way. It's also important in cozies that most of the characters are likable, at least the principal characters. The character that usually gets murdered is not usually likable. And in fact, sometimes people will root for someone to be murdered that they don't like in the cozy mystery. That might be me on occasion, but usually there's one person that you just don't like. And sometimes that person is killed and sometimes they're not. But usually they get their just desserts, so to speak, which there are a lot of cozy mysteries about desserts and food. But usually something happens that puts them in their place or removes them from the group of people that we're talking with and we're learning about and are helping to make things right in their little neighborhood. The characters really are mostly likable because they want you to read book 2, book 3, book 15, book 35, right? So they really want you to come back. And I think that that's important as well. Editing, Lori, had to pop in before I finish the characteristics. One of the ones I forgot to mention is that all of the little titles of these are usually hilarious and they get funnier and funnier as time goes by. Spoiler alert, I just ordered one and it will come today or tomorrow called Cheddar Off Dead. How can you not love those punny titles? So that's also a mark of cozy mysteries. They're also very fast paced. There are twists and turns throughout each book for sure, but they're usually completed pretty quickly, which is why oftentimes I can read one of these in one day because I am really riveted and I'm anxious to find out what happens, and they're quick. They're short. In fact, the one I'm about to show you is 294 pages, but it's a mass market paperback size. So super fast, super easy, written for every reader, I think. It's why probably when I was young, I did get a lot of these from my sisters too, because they were easy for me to read, as was Miss Marple. Cozy mysteries also put a lot of emphasis on the plot and the character development. That makes it a great combination of enjoyment for me. I love a book that has both of those things. And in some cases, when one is lacking one or the other, I don't always find it to be satisfying. But there are very, very few cozy mysteries over the years that I haven't started and finished because they usually are quick and they are very well developed and written. There is a bit of controversy about something with cozy mysteries, and that is, are they graphically violent or are they not? Most of the time, no. In fact, most of the time, cozy mysteries don't have bad language. They don't have a lot of explicit sex. There may be a relationship, but it's very closed door, off the page. And there really usually is not a lot of profanity in a cozy mystery either. There really geared toward making you feel as though this is something I need when I need a happy sort of release from that thing I just read, which, to be quite honest with you, I am reading a book right now that is so violent and so explicit that I really have sometimes just sort of, and I can take a lot of violence, mind you, and a lot of gore and horror, but I have occasionally just been like, oh my God, that was a lot. I'm going to finish it. In fact, I paused it to film this for you today because I had a minute to be able to do that. But I'm going to finish it today. But I put you first. I just want you to know that. But back to the profanity, gentleness, and non-profane aspects of cozy mysteries. That's very clear that that is a part of these books. And a lot of cozy mystery fans want it exactly that way. There are a lot of other people that want them to be a little bit more graphic and a little bit more, I don't know, deep and disturbing. And I don't think you're going to find that in cozy mysteries. Now, we will talk about some murder mystery thrillers that will be deep and disturbing, but you'll have sort of an understanding right out the gate of whether or not we're talking about a cozy or a more disturbing novel. Okay, so let's talk about a few that I want you to be aware of that I am either going to read very soon or that I just read. So here's what I want you to know. Bayou Book Thief, Ellen Byron. I just read this for our Mardi Gras read along, and it was really cute, and I really enjoyed it. So much so that I've actually ordered book 2 by Ellen Byron in this series, but she also has some other series as well. But this is set in New Orleans, which is typically a pretty violent place to live. I got to be honest with you, but this was definitely a cozy. While someone is murdered and he is kind of an unlikable character, and I think it tells you in the beginning that he dies, so I'm not going to spoil anything. Yes, it tells you that he's killed, but you'll figure out who he is pretty quickly on. I suspect that's another trait of cozies. The murder happens pretty fast. You don't have to wait around for that to develop. That pretty much happens from the get-go. But I really liked this one, and I'm really excited about getting on to more of those in that series. I also recently read the first novel in this series, finally, because it's been on my shelves for a while, and that's Homicide in Hardcover. This is book 3. I'm not showing you book 2 because it's on my stack of books to read in the other room, and I don't want to upset all these babies by getting up and leaving the room during a storm, because you know that is just absolutely unacceptable. But the second one is called If Books Could Kill, which is on my list to read this spring. And then The Lies That Bind, I have book 3. This is a bibliophile mystery, and there are many of these by Kate Carlisle, and I really love them, and they're just sweet. Now, Kate does move around, so she's not staying in her little village, which is okay. It happens, right? So in this particular series, book 2 anyway, she's off to Scotland, I think. The next one is another series that I have read a lot of and I like to read, and that's Laura Childs. It's interesting because I love these because of the way that they have done these, and then they didn't do it that way for Twisted Tea Christmas. Here's why I love Laura Childs. They're all set in South Carolina, which I love, South Carolina, and I appreciate, because I've been there more than once, I appreciate all the references to some of the places that I love. She's a tea shop owner. I also love tea. She has a great cast of characters that show up frequently in her book, which is, you know, lovely. And so she has, her name is Theodosia, by the way, so she has her tea blender, whose name is, gosh, what is his name? Does it say on one of these? Drayton Connolly. And then she has a friend who works for her too, who I cannot remember her name, and I'm not going to look at that. But these are all very, very fun. The other thing about cozies is you don't have to read them in order. Although, if somebody gets married or something happens to somebody or they close a tea shop, then I guess that would be important for you to know, and it might be a spoiler. But you really don't have to usually read them in order because people do crazy things all the time at different times. I have not read these in order either, but I love this one. This is Cleo Coyle. I don't want to put that in front of my face. She writes books about coffee, and I think On What Grounds is her first one. Yes, it's the first in a new series. Cleo Coyle is not her real name. Most of these people's names are not the names that are on the books, but these are so much fun, and I really love these because I have to say I love coffee more than I love tea. So you can imagine how exciting these are. All right, and the last one I'm going to share with you. I don't want to share too many at a time because I'll overwhelm you, and I'll probably feature one or two, maybe just one each time, depending on how many I have. But the last one is a special one for you. This is the Cat in the Stacks mystery series. This is set in a library, and a librarian has a giant cat. What kind of cats are those called? They're the really, really big ones. Does it say? He's huge. Maine Coon cat. That's it. I've never had a Maine Coon cat, but I have taken care of one for a bit of time, and they are quite large. Nevertheless, this book is set in Athena, Mississippi, which is not a real place, as I remember. This is about Charlie Harris, who rescues this cat, whose name is Diesel. And so Charlie and Diesel are the people that kind of solve these murders. You're probably wondering how Diesel does this, but Diesel does this in a very unique and wonderful way. And Diesel is a sweet, sweet cat. He goes for walks. He goes to the library all the time. I just love this. Now, you will notice that this is written by Miranda James. I will say that this is actually written by a man, which is why I wanted to share this with you today. This is written by Dean James. He's a lovely fellow. I've had the privilege of being able to meet him to talk about his books at my library, but also I follow him on Facebook and he's just a hoot. But I'm sure he wrote these books under the name Miranda James because he thought that people wouldn't necessarily read them if they were written by a man, because most cozy mysteries, again, are written by women. But he does a really remarkable job. There's a number of these. In fact, I was thinking the other day that I need to get more of these because I, have not. But this is let's see, Murder Past Due might be the first one. I'm not sure. But look, he signed this for me and my partner. But it was definitely Dean. I don't think that's a spoiler alert. I hope not. Goodness sakes. If it's a spoiler alert, don't tell anybody. We're clear on that. Thanks for watching this video today and for your interest in this new series. I'm so excited that so many of you love these mysteries as much as I do, and I really have been craving mysteries, cozies, and thrillery mysteries recently. So it's time for me to prioritize these for sure. I have been less likely to read historical fiction lately. So this one I think has kind of usurped that order, but I'm good with it. I can read whatever I want, whenever I want, right? But these are great, especially in between a really dark, heavy book. They're really a nice palate cleanser. So I'm looking forward to one this week for sure. Now, I also want you to tell me in the comments below which one of your cozy mystery authors is your favorite, or several. If you'd like to recommend a few that I haven't read before, I really encourage you, recommend all your cozies in the comments below, and that way all of us can benefit from understanding the differences and nuances in these series. And really, I find a new one all the time. It is crazy how much of those I find. In fact, I'm probably also going to do a video very soon that's on this same topic, but slightly different. So stay tuned for that. And again, as always, happy reading. Bye.